Well, hello and howdy. My name is CC Hawkley. That's Scott McDonald. Welcome to the Front Range Hockey Podcast. How you doing, Scott?
Doing well, TC. How are you doing? How was your vacation? You took a week there.
I did. Took a long weekend, took a little staycation, and the girlfriend had her birthday, and she just wanted to get out of the house and to go up to Black Hawk and get some crab legs. And she loves her some crab legs, I tell you what. And so we did
Don't we
that,
all?
and yeah, for sure. Oh, it was tasty, and I got some prime rib too. It was a good deal
Very
there
nice.
at the Lodge Casino.
Your
Or
first
not?
place for fun.
Hey,
Not sponsored
not
yet.
sponsored yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully one day that'd be great. But yeah, I had a good time. How was? Let's see, we recorded Wednesday last week, and we're recording on Thursday now. This is episode number 4 of the Front Range Hockey Podcast for Friday, February 5th, 2021. That is opening night for the AHL. And with that introduction, I'll go back to my question that kind of led on to that. Scott, how has your week been?
It's been good, man. Busy at the other gig, and obviously, doing a lot of coverage on the side with the Avs, and the Eagles are getting underway. We had our first media availability with head coach Greg Cronin, and that was a good time. And I guess a lot of a
Uh-huh.
lot of stuff happening with the Avalanche that we got to talk about, or I guess things that aren't happening with the Avalanche, rather.
Right. Yes. Good segue into the opening salve for sure. And boy, things are getting dicey in the NHL as a whole. And the Avalanche they are directly affected by it because of one of their opponents, the Minnesota Wild. They had to postpone some games against Minnesota. Of course, Elliot Friedman of Hockey Night in Canada and Sportsnet there, north of the border, said that the NHL has been forced to make some changes, or they're making some changes rather. They haven't been forced to, but they pretty much have with like the 90 plus COVID cases that are in the league currently, or at least players in COVID protocol. I'll use the correct terminology there.
There you go.
But yeah, so one of the major changes is that they're going to be taking out the plexiglass behind the bench and everything. And one of my friends down in the Texas area said, "Well, how's that going to make a difference when you've got fans at the game there in Dallas?" And so it's like, well, that's a good point. But they're also doing HEPA filters. They're installing those. I think they're limiting coaches and players arriving to the arena at least like an hour and 45 minutes before game time, before the puck
Mhm.
drops. And of
Yep.
course, like I mentioned, the Avalanche are directly affected by this because you played the Minnesota Wild. They postponed some games, and yeah, that occurred on Wednesday this past week, and it's just been yeah. Let's see, 5 additional Wild players were added to the league's COVID list, and so
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, and you got the picture here of Kyle Rao and JT Compher fighting on the front. You can't get that close. Just say Kyle Rao had COVID-19.
Yeah.
There's little to no chance that JT Compher does not contract COVID-19 after chucking fists with Kyle Rao.
Yeah.
It's
They
like
they certainly weren't 6 feet apart. That's for sure.
no, definitely no social distancing when you're dancing toe to toe and engaging in fisticuffs, as it were. So, man,
Yeah.
just yeah. So Scott, you were going to cover a hockey game tonight. Like I said, we're recording on Thursday the 4th. You're like, okay, I'm available. Let's record this. And now it's postponed. And it's like you got Gabe Landeskog coming on the COVID-19 protocol today. Tyson Jost was announced as well. Are we going to see more Avs players? I wouldn't be surprised if you had a few more by the end of the
Yeah.
week and into the weekend.
And that's something I actually was just chatting with Dater about, just texting him. He seemed to think that's going to be game on Saturday for. I guess they're traveling to St. Louis. And
Let's check here. Yeah, go ahead.
that flight would have to leave tomorrow, Friday, for them to make that. And the team hasn't
Mm-hmm.
practiced in a few days, and it's just the way that these things work, the way the spreading works. You can kind of see what the trend might be. It's like you had one Minnesota Wild player tested positive back in Minnesota in the first couple games of the series, and then they still play the game knowing that there's someone in COVID protocol. That was probably their first mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they continue the game. They allow both teams to travel back to Colorado for the 2-game set that was supposed to happen, and other news came out before that game on Tuesday. But then you got, I just had a feeling. So I guess I'll go back, and I tweeted about this after Tuesday's game. I said it wasn't a great idea, just knowing that the entire locker room has been exposed. The way the incubation period works with this virus is like, maybe one guy's in COVID protocol, but it could take upwards of 5 to 14 days, whatever it is, for more
Right.
people to start testing positive. And it's like, damn well this guy, in the he's been in the locker room with practice, whatever. Checking his teammates or whatever, getting as close as Rao and Comfer were, like in the game on Tuesday. And that's just, the nature of the game. So you got to think just like it's spreading, like for sure. So I had a feeling, after Tuesday's game, we did media availability, whatever. Avs won. The Avs PR, they'll send us an email to all the media people who are credentialed, giving the practice schedule for like the next day or two. And they told us, practice at noon on Wednesday at Ball Arena. See you guys there. It was like midnight, which is like a weird time for them to be like emailing. They say, hey, like change of plans. Actually, practice is canceled like tomorrow. And I kind of just like took that as like, okay, maybe like they're starting to hear some like rumblings of like, all right, this guy's like not feeling good or something, or yeah, it's like, I mean, we've been playing each other for 3 games now and we've like all been exposed. Maybe we should shut it down for a couple days. So that was my thinking, just like a hunch I had, just speculation. I like tweeted something about that, and had a couple verified people on Twitter who I won't name, calling me out, sliding my DMs, saying it's like, oh, okay, it's like, Scott, they don't test until like in the morning. So the fact they cancel practice at midnight like doesn't mean there's a positive test or anything. And I was like, I know that, and I that's what I said in the tweet. I just have a weird feeling that I think they want to like, better safe than sorry. Let's shut it down for a couple of days because yeah, maybe some like player, is complaining about not feeling well or something or whatever it might be, or the coach has had a bad feeling about it. So that's kind of just what I thought. I was like, they've never done this before. I think that's why they canceled practice. I know there's no positive test because they haven't tested yet, but just a thought. Mm-hmm. And then sure enough, a few hours later, we find out that, hey, Tyson Jost is on, COVID protocol. 5 more Minnesota Wild players on protocol. And turns out that was, in fact, the reason why they decided to delay practice on Wednesday. And then obviously cancel today's game. And Minnesota's next 4 games are canceled. So they're shutting it down for like a week or something. So no practice and no games for any of them. And you know what? I'm thinking it's the Avs are next. Like just to travel to share the same facility in Minnesota where there's been exposures, and then to travel back here, everyone's on the plane or whatever, play another game. 6 more people get COVID protocol. Landeskog, obviously, today, Thursday, gets announced as he's on it as well. And just the way these things spread, I have a feeling. I was telling Dater, it's like I'm gonna guess like 2 more Avalanche players, are on COVID protocol by 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Friday, and I think Saturday's game is canceled. I think the NHL might look into doing the same thing they did with the Wild and shutting down the Avs for a while, just because of how close in proximity they've been for the last week. It's a lot of opportunities for exposure. It's a lot of facilities that you're sharing space with, and it's a dangerous virus. It spreads very, very quickly, and all it takes is someone breathing on you from 5 feet away, and you got it. So that's where we're at, I guess. All that to say, I don't think the Avs will be flying to St. Louis for the next couple of games.
I think, you went with your gut when practice got canceled at midnight. Like you said, very unusual time to call off a practice after sending out the initial email. And then, it's fair to say that your instincts are, it seems to be on point. Like you're like, okay, reading the tea leaves, as it were, with that situation. Unbeknownst to you, it was Jost. And then, it's the responsible thing to do coming into this weekend. If a couple guys like, Landeskog's in COVID-19 protocol, Jost, like we mentioned, is also in COVID-19 protocol. One more guy, maybe 2 more guys. I would think even 2 guys should push you over the edge. I mean, New Jersey, by God, has 17 players.
Yeah.
Thanks to Chris Johnston at Reporter Chris on Twitter. The Devils are up to 17 players on the COVID protocol list. It's like, good golly, like that's just it's like Dallas at the beginning of the season. Like they couldn't
Right.
get their season off the ground because they made up most of the COVID-19 protocol list.
And
And
there's only
so
so much you can do too. Like yeah, they're mandating masks that the players wear them, even though they're like in the locker room putting their gear on or whatever. But you
mhm,
take it off like as soon as you get on the ice for practice or for a game, and you're going through checking drills. You're talking with your teammates. You're sharing water bottles, whatever it is. And it's a very PR thing to do to have the players like wear the masks or whatever. And it's like we're doing everything we can, and let's remove the glass from behind like the benches. That's gonna like certainly help improve like airflow. And it's they're doing everything they can, obviously, but there's really at the end of the day there's not much you can do other than just be as safe as you possibly can. But my thought process is as soon as I think one player goes down, it's just you should think that they've all been exposed.
mhm.
And I think you should have to shut it down for a week. I understand the scheduling conflicts that's gonna cause the NHL, and it's a nightmare for them and for the team, obviously. Like you said with Dallas, like you had to shut down practice for like a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and
Right.
that's gonna kill a team, and then it's gonna kill the NHL when they're trying to like postpone these games and reschedule them down the road. Be like, look, I mean, you guys are gonna have to play like 5 days in a row or something. That's gonna be the only way we can like fit this back in, and it just becomes a big scheduling nightmare. So it's a sticky situation. It's a ever changing, fluid situation, and I'm kind of surprised it took this long. We're a month into the season for like our first major outbreaks to start happening. I thought it would happen a lot quicker, but I'm glad. Obviously, whatever they're doing has been working for the most part. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's only so much you could do. Like I said.
Take a look at take a look at the NFL, take a look at the NBA, take a look at Major League Baseball. I know the Miami Marlins had a big scare, and I know that you've also got, players that were, breaking COVID protocol in the NBA for various extracurricular activities we won't get into. Strip club. Sorry, I had to clear my throat a little bit there.
Oops, yeah.
Oops. So NBA's dealt with it, MLB's dealt with it. NFL surprisingly navigated their season pretty well. They did have to shuffle quite a bit, and they did cater to certain teams over others, but we won't get into that either.
Sure.
Yeah, this is Front Range Hockey. I won't talk too much about the other sports,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think the other big 3 leagues, have navigated it well. I haven't paid attention to how Major League Soccer, how they handled it as much, so I can't comment on that. But I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to put more stringent measures in place, and you're gonna have to put more stringent, like I don't know. You're gonna have to shut it down quick when stuff like that happens. And you look at the Central Division, and especially like Florida. I mean, some of these teams already have a gauntlet of games, like 1 game every 2 days as it is. So it's like, it's just it's a marathon that these guys are going to be running, and especially if you're going to have to come in and reschedule games, it's just, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Again, especially it's just such a sticky situation. Like politically speaking, and for people's overall health speaking. Obviously, you want sports to go on or whatever, and the right thing to do would be when the first inclination of any sort of like exposure happens to shut it down if you really care about spreading it or not spreading it rather.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a business too, and that's where the politics comes into it. And it's like, hey, I'm sure they're aware that like someone tested positive, but it's like game on. Like we have to get this TV money, we have to get this ad revenue. And again, just like for the front offices and whatnot, just the scheduling part of it is an absolute nightmare. And
Yeah.
like the players are already playing every other game on average, sometimes 2-3 games in a row here down the road, and it's a nightmare situation. There's just really nothing you could do. I mean, canceling the season is like probably that's obviously like the the furthest end of the spectrum you could go. But if you really cared about, player safety and things like that, then you wait until everyone's vaccinated and you cancel the season. But,
Right.
Again, politics, it's a business, and they have to do what they have to do. And I understand, but it's such a weird situation to be in for a big business like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100% because, you want to be healthy, you want to stay safe, you want to get people vaccinated and all these things. But then, yeah, you've got players that want to play. I think that's a factor as well.
Yeah.
And you've got a business to run. So we'll wrap that up. I mean, that's a whole.
We can go around the rabbit like the hamster wheel all day long because there really is no right answer, right? Like that's what we're getting at, I guess. It's like you either play, you play or you don't play. Either way, you're wrong. So.
Yeah, and it's very complicated. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. Like I said, the players will, the owners will. It's just the NHL's will in general. But but anyway, let's move on to the on ice product. Let's talk about that a little bit. Sure. So, yeah, the Avalanche since we last played. Let's see here. I think they've played, or since we've last played. Yeah, like we played with the Avs. Since we last recorded our episode, the Avalanche played San Jose 3-0 shutout for Grooves, and then 5-1 victory over Minnesota. Minnesota came back the next night on January 31st and won 4-3 in overtime. And then you get into February and you play that last game on Tuesday, like you said, and it was a close one. 2-1, another 1-goal game for the Avs in the Wild. And then, of course, tonight, February 4th, was postponed because of COVID-19 protocols and, health and safety concerns. Out of an abundance of caution is the phraseology that they're using right now. So we'll stick to that. But yeah, I mean, from those 3 games, obviously, like I said, you got 7 points out of a possible 8. One of those being a shutout, one of those being a 4-goal just shellacking of Minnesota. I mean, yeah, what were some of your observations from some of those games, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, they're hitting their stride, and this is kind of going back all the way to episode 1 when people were kind of panicking about them losing their first game, and we told everyone to relax, calm down, like it's going to be fine. This happens every year, I feel like, and they have to get their legs under them, let them like build that camaraderie and navigate this weird situation, like we just alluded to, that they're playing, and it's a different world, and it takes time to kind of build momentum, and I think that's what we're seeing now. And they're doing well, even in spite of all these injuries that we're seeing. We're really, really happy and proud of like these Colorado Eagles players that are stepping up. Just that being my original beat and covering the Eagles for a couple of seasons, it's just awesome to see some of these guys like Logan O'Connor in particular, really just dating back to the playoffs last year when he stepped in and played really, really well, gained some national attention. And I was like, I mean, I've seen this like for so long. He's like, the NHL's best kept secret. But it's good to see these guys like stepping up, and even when the Nathan McKinnons are out, and some of your huge name big players who kind of drive the momentum for the team and carry the team are out, we're still seeing this depth that we've talked about so often, up and down the pipeline from Avs to Eagles, really stepping in and filling in significant holes.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing. You and I touched on the last episode. We touched on the second line needing to step up. Saad, Burakovsky, and Kadri. And look at that. I mean, Saad is.
They're the Avs' best line right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that first line had to carry a lot of the weight, but like the second line, as you mentioned, Bednar took him aside individually and talked to him that they needed to step up, and by God, have they? Saad scored a number of points. I think he had 6 points in 3 games. And then does that sound right?
I think it's something like that. Yeah. He's hitting his stride for sure.
Right. And then, Kadri in that 3-0 shutout, he had 2 goals himself, and Burakovsky had the one in the middle. So it's like, these guys are hitting their stride in spite of the injuries. And, when you've got so many guys down, it's like, you have the you have the detractors on Twitter saying, "Oh, it's the Avs, conditioning coach and strength and conditioning coach," and it's like,
Saw that a lot.
yeah, it's like injuries happen. Injuries are going to happen, and it's not
It's like
something that you, yeah,
look at some of the injuries that like happened. Like, how is the conditioning staff or the coaching staff or even the players supposed to like do anything about that? Like, you have Belmar who got slid into, and his knee was not supposed to bend that direction, and it did. Not the conditioner's fault. Eric Johnson took a hard hit and smacked his face on the ground. Not anyone's fault.
no,
And then McKinnon's kind of the one that everyone was talking about. It's just like no one knows what happened to him, and or like even Devon Taves, like one of the Avs' best defensemen, top pair defenseman, took a puck to the foot. No one's fault. Yeah, I think everyone's just kind of like frustrated with like McKinnon of all people to kind of miss a game when he hardly ever misses any games. And it's like, where did he go? He played 2 periods and then like disappeared. Everyone watched it in detail, like under a microscope to see like what it is he did. Like, oh, I think this stride right here, like looked like he, tweaked his like groin a little bit. It's like no one knows. We know for some inside sources that it should only be like a week or 2 weeks that he's out. Our guess is it's a pulled groin, but that's just kind of speculation. But we'll see. I mean, so far right now, there's like 5 or 6 big guys, namely on the fourth line, and obviously McKinnon and Devon Taves, who are out, as Bednar calls it, week to week. And he got a little frustrated with us media, because that's obviously everyone's the first question out of everyone's mouth. Like, whoever raises their hand first on the Zoom, gets to ask the question about like, is there an update on Belmar, like Calvert, or like what's going on with McKinnon? And he literally like he looks aside and he's like, all right, guys, so this is what we're gonna do. He's like, he looks down at a piece of paper, reads off like the triage report, if you will, of
right.
like of all the injuries, and he's like, this is the last time I'm telling you this week. Like, I'm not answering any questions if you guys ask. And that's how we're gonna do it. Like every Monday or whatever, like whatever the first availability is of the week, I'll give you guys updates, but like don't ask me in the meantime. And, like I respect it. And like, obviously he's kind of showing his frustration a little bit. One, just getting that question all the time. And then 2, he's having to coach a team that's, half of it is an AHL roster. And, it's like, that's the last thing on his mind is, what's going on with like McKinnon or whatever. It's like, I'm trying to formulate a game plan for the players I have available to me right now to win hockey games. And I mean, he's done it so far, and he's done it wonderfully. And that's a credit to him, and obviously the players as well. And Greg Cronin's staff down at the Eagles for conditioning them so well and getting them ready for this moment. And yeah, it's unfortunate what's happening, but it's, you take it a day at a time or a week at a time. And right now they're 2-0-1 since like all these injuries took place, and 7 points in 8 games, whatever it is. And that's the bottom line. That's what you look at is always the bottom line. And injuries aside, they're still winning games. So we'll leave it at that.
We preached depth in the off season. And, looking back to last season, looking at this season, you've got those depth guys. You went out and you got a Kiefer Sherwood. You have a Logan O'Connor that you can utilize and everything like that. And it's a frustrating thing when you see the injury bug hit a team, but it's also a encouraging thing when you have guys that can step up at the AHL level and can get in there and participate, and not just participate, but I think the word thrive comes to mind, and in this system and in this, just in this environment. And the Avalanche have always, at least in the past couple of years, I say always, but past couple of years, they've been great with their depth and everything like that. And so, they've got a 25-year history. I can't just be throwing around that absolute qualifier always.
Exactly. There were some rough years there in the early 2010s.
Yes, there were. There were. So not always. I'm not going to say that, but yeah, the Avalanche. I mean, in spite of everything that's happening, they seem to be doing well, and we'll see when McKinnon gets back, and those other guys as well. Like like you said, Bednar with the report week to week. So that's when you'll revisit it. It's just after every week, but. With that said, you mentioned the Eagles. You mentioned half the AHL roster, maybe not half, but a good amount of guys
actually
coming up
third.
From the Eagles.
I counted. Third. I think there was like 7 last game, the 2-1 win on Tuesday. There was like 7 former Eagles players that spent significant time, and in Loveland. I'm including Ryan Graves on that because Ryan Graves will tell you that's, you know, where he earned his chops. I think he only played 30 games or something with the Eagles, but I mean, he raves about what Cronin did and the number of hard conversations that he's had with Cronin, pulling him to his office after practices and after games. And yeah, and he told me when I spoke to him at the stadium series, like media availability, and he told me that I was doing like a piece. Again, the Eagles were kind of my beat at the time, so I talked to Graves and Frankie, and just kind of like asked them about what it's like, you know, being coached by Greg Cronin, and that's exactly what he told me. What I just said. He was like, I was like, I know you didn't spend that much time like in Loveland, but like, how did that help you get to this point? And he said more than you would think. And he told me about those difficult conversations he's had, and Cronin's told me about those difficult conversations he's had because he's super proud of, you know, Ryan Graves for, you know, obviously as an NHL coach, that's what you want to see. You want to see your guys. You don't want to coach them very long because you want to see them like, you know, excelling at the NHL level. So he's obviously very proud of Ryan Graves. And then, you know, on Wednesday, whenever the media availability was with Cronin, he said the same thing about Logan O'Connor. Obviously was fielding a lot of questions about Logan O'Connor, and he said verbatim, like, I'm so proud of him, and he embodies what the Eagles like development system is. And like, that's, if we had 20 Logan O'Connors on the team, then they wouldn't need me because he coaches like himself. And yeah, I mean, all that to say, like, I guess, yeah, there was like seven Eagles players on the roster between like Hunter Mitka, Ryan Graves, you had Connor Timmins, Jacob McDonald, love that guy, Logan O'Connor,
cousin Jake.
Yeah, I wish. I get that so often. I mean, I tweeted a bunch about him, obviously, because Bednar like even said after the game, he was like, outside of Makar, like Jacob McDonald is like the most impressive defenseman for him. So I like tweeted something about that. And, you know, everyone loves to light it up in the comments, like, oh, you're just like biased, like that's your like cousin or like your brother. It's not, you know, I wish.
It's spelled the same too. That doesn't.
It is, yeah, the capital D and everything. It is kind of crazy, but yeah, just like following him. I mean, obviously, it's, you know, you know, also just like, you know, covering a sports team, like you do have your biases, and that's definitely mine. I'm, you know, the president of the Logan O'Connor fan club, and Jacob McDonald's like, he's up there as well. And that's, I mean, it's just, you love to see these guys, like, you know, for the past 2 years, kind of like earn their chops down in Loveland, and like now they're getting credit on a national level with a National Hockey League team, and they're doing really well. And it's awesome to see. And that really is truly a testament to what they're doing down in Loveland.
Yeah. I mean, when you cover a team, I mean, I covered the Idaho Steelheads for 2 seasons, as a lot of people know. And then I covered the Eagles last season. When you start to talk with the players, talk with the coaches, you start to develop, you know, working relationships with them. And so you want to see them succeed, and you want to see them get to the next level. And, you know, a lot of those guys that I covered in Idaho are now, you know, playing for Texas. Well, not a lot, but a handful of those guys. And they've moved up both on the ice and on the bench as well. So yeah, I mean, you get to develop those working relationships, and you want to see them succeed, like I said. So I totally get that. But when it comes to the Eagles, like you mentioned, third of the roster on the Avalanche currently because of the MASH unit that is the Avalanche injuries currently. Yeah, so the Eagles were supposed to open their season on Friday, February 5th and February 6th, Saturday, against the Stockton Heat. However, on January 28th, it was made official by the Calgary Flames organization that the Stockton Heat are not going to be playing out of Stockton, California this year, and they will be playing up in Calgary with theoretically the 4 other Canadian teams, which have yet to release their schedule because of, well, specifically the provincial government of Ontario has put down a pretty hard group gathering. I guess you could call it a bylaw or a you know, just,
I don't know.
It's not a law, but it's a, you know, just
a strong recommendation, I guess.
There we go.
Probably even like stronger than that, but I don't know.
Right. I mean, it could be a law. I haven't looked into it that much, but yeah, laying down guidelines. Let's put it that way. Some pretty stiff guidelines there. So Belleville and Toronto, the Senators and the Marlies are not looking, you know, like they're going to be playing hockey anytime soon, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, that's 4 games from the Colorado Eagles schedule that had to be marked off. And honestly, it wasn't a big deal. The only 2 games that they lost were this weekend's once upon a time season opener. Now the home opener, quote unquote, for the Eagles is going to be on February 24th against Tucson. So they're going to bump that out almost 3 weeks. And so it's going to be a minute before, if and when, media members can head up to Loveland. I'm still waiting to hear back from, the powers that be in the Eagles organization regarding that. But Colorado will open their season next weekend at San Diego. They're going to be on the road. San Diego, February 13th and 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to Colorado, spending that period of time in San Diego, which I hear is a beautiful city. But then you've got Ontario on that Wednesday, the 17th. Looking at my calendar here, don't mind me. Ontario on the 19th, Friday as well, and then San Diego again on the 20th, and then they come back to Loveland, like I said, on the 24th. So a little bit of a delay. Like I said, the AHL season is starting tomorrow on the 5th, or today if you're listening, on February 5th. And yeah, it didn't muck up the schedule as much as like Henderson and Ontario. I think Henderson was slated to play Stockton 8 times, or it was San Jose was scheduled to play Stockton 10 times this year. And so Colorado had to add a couple games for San Jose, and a few other teams did as well to make that up. So,
Yep. I mean, that's again, sports in the year 2021, 2020. Like, it's a fluid situation, and you gotta stay on your toes, and it's weird, but I think we're all happy to have it. The players are obviously happy, and I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm excited for the season with the Eagles and to see how they do, because it's gonna be. I mean, especially the way injuries are going for the Avalanche, like, I mean, a good portion of their like returning cast and some of their better players are now in Denver playing for the Avalanche. So we'll see. Another, like we said it last week, it's a great opportunity. QMJHL products, but they're getting a great chance here to play it at the AHL level, and it's going to be a good experience for them, and it's going to be a fast and exciting team, I think, with all this young firepower that they have.
Yeah, it's nice that, and that's kind of been a common theme on the other podcast I'm a co-host on, the Calder Farmstead, during season previews and everything like that. With the CHL, like you said, the QMJHL, the Western Hockey League, the OHL, with all these leagues on hold and not playing for the time being, you got all this young talent that are getting their shot in the AHL, and some are good enough to be in the NHL, but they're getting their shot in the AHL first and foremost, and most commonly. And so it's a really neat thing to see just a bunch of this young talent. And it's like, all right, the CHL isn't playing, go have fun professionally for a little bit. And it's like, all right, here we go. We get to see Jean-Luc Foudy, Sasha Mutala, and Mutala. And so you get to see these younger guys that would not be playing at the professional level under normal circumstances.
And it's funny you mentioned those two guys, actually, because during Cronin's availability the other day, the question was asked, who's stuck out the most so far, and he mentioned all the young guys, and he mentioned Foudy, he mentioned Mutala by name, and he's like, I mean, Cronin likes to use the word visible as a player that's doing well, like someone that it's just like watching Nathan MacKinnon on the ice. Like, if it's your first hockey game and you go, you're sitting in the nosebleeds watching the Avs, you're going to notice Nathan MacKinnon right away, because he's fast, he's quick, he's fun to watch. So that's kind of the word that Cronin uses too, as visibilities. I mean, you could be a first time fan in the stands, you're like on the ice, that's the guy you recognize because he's kicking your ass. And so he used the word visibility, and he said those were two of the most visible guys that he's noticed the first couple of training camps that they've had. So again, that's awesome. Like, it's cool, and these kids are going to be hungry because they wouldn't normally get this opportunity, like you just said, and they are. So it's like, why not? We have nothing to lose. Let's go have some fun and see stack up against 20 to 30-year-old AHL hockey players when they're 18, 19.
Yeah, we've dubbed them the grown ass men, the young kids against the grown ass men
Yeah.
in the AHL. That's what
Yes.
we've been. Yeah, that's what we've been referencing a lot on the Calder Farmstead. So we'll just we'll continue that on here at Front Range Hockey. You know, Jean-Luc Foudy and Sasha Mutala getting their chance with the grown ass men of the Colorado Eagles, and soon the grown ass men in the AHL come next weekend. Like I said, Eagles season opener in San Diego on Saturday at 8 p.m. Mountain. So there you go. Valentine's Day weekend, they're playing the Gulls. So stay tuned for that. And we'll have another episode before that. So there you go. But that's the Eagles. Let's talk a little bit about college hockey. Not a whole lot to update, as we tend to have a theme going on here this year.
It's good for like time efficiency. I know we're trying to keep it under an hour, so
right.
just
And
give a
we've
quick
got
45 seconds to a minute on the
exactly.
unfortunate product that is Colorado collegiate hockey these days.
Collegiate hockey. Well, yeah. Colorado college hockey too, but you want to specify that because there's three teams.
DU, we can lump them in there too. Air Force, obviously not great, and then
right.
CC. So,
yep, CC, and we're not talking about me. We're talking about Colorado college. So
that CC's good. Colorado college CC, it's not good.
Well, shucks, thanks. And okay, so CC and Denver, they had a weekend set. We talked about it last episode. The 29th and the 30th. Friday, Saturday set between Denver and CC. Gold Pan matchup was postponed, unfortunately. So we'll just we'll leave that be. Next game is going to be, I think, next weekend for CC and Denver as well. So the good news, and we'll move on after we address this real quick. But Air Force Falcons. I mean, gosh, it only took 12 games. They are now 1-9-1. They have notched a victory in this abysmal series.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're alive. There is a heartbeat. They've resuscitated.
In Waltham, Massachusetts at Bentley University, February 1st, Monday, they came out with a 4-3 overtime victory. And just looking at the goals here, they traded goals back and forth with Bentley through the first and the third period. Bentley at 10-10 of the third period scored a power play goal. It looked like Air Force was on the ropes again, but at 11:04, Ty Pochopinski. Wow. Pochopinski.
I think you nailed it.
There we go. Yeah, thanks. Pochopinski. I hadn't read the name, hadn't looked up the pronunciation. Ty Pochopinski scores the game-tying goal at 11:04 in the third period, and then Willie Rhyme for Air Force at 3:14 of overtime. Scores the goal, the game-winning goal. Air Force gets the monkey off their back, and they get their first victory of the year.
Good for them.
Just 12 games in. Good for them. So
love it.
Way to go, guys. So that's your college roundup. And last but not least, it's one of my favorites. I think it's the favorite segment of the show. It's asking the feed, and it's asking the people out there in the Twitterverse, what questions do you have about the Avalanche, the Eagles, or DU, or any other hockey? So first and foremost, let's get started. Griffin Drefault at Griffin_DREI. With our next few games postponed, would you consider this a good thing, as we now have time for guys to heal up? I think that's a pretty straightforward answer on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like where my mind went as well. It's like, this isn't the worst thing, like it's another game that you're not missing Nathan McKinnon, and you're not missing Devon Taves and some of those key members of your team. So yeah, obviously in a weird, backwards way, it's a good thing that we're getting games canceled. But obviously there's that caveat of, people are sick. So that's not so good, but
right.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
I think, with the next few games postponed, well, maybe, it's only one game postponed, but like I said earlier, I'm pretty sure, we're going to see a couple more postponements, but yeah, I think it's a good thing. Objectively, it's a good deal.
Yeah, gives the guys that are injured more time to get well, and the guys that aren't injured a little respite. Like I said, it was a marathon for a lot of teams coming into this season with the schedule the way it was and everything. And so to have an unplanned rest and to be able to not practice and maybe, at least rest your body a little bit and heal from the injuries for those players that is applicable to. Yeah, it's definitely a good thing. Definitely a good thing. So thanks for the question, Griffin. Appreciate it. Next question, Scott Wood at Scott_Wood19 on the Twitters. Do you think the Avs will reschedule a few games to not risk anyone else getting the virus because could be a chance Jost gave it to someone else?
Well, Scott, you nailed that. 24 hours later, Captain Gabe Landeskog got it. And, like we touched on earlier, that's, probably the first of many, just the way this virus works. And, I know Tyson Jost, he was the last person to speak during media availability after that Tuesday night game. And, you're in a bit of a crowded room when that happens. So Avs PR was exposed. Like, he didn't have a mask on during that time. And, the players obviously that also spoke. I think Logan O'Connor's in there. I think Grubauer was in there. Coach Bednar, obviously. So, I think there's a lot of opportunities for exposure. And, yeah, I think Joe certainly gave it to – well, the Wild certainly gave it to a lot of people. And then now it's obviously going around the Colorado locker room as well. And, yeah, I think – games will – I don't know if they're going to reschedule – I guess I see what you're saying. So, yeah, reschedule a few games. They're going to have to. They're postponed for now. And, I'm thinking this weekend's games are going to be postponed too. And, yeah, they'll have to find a time slot down the road to reschedule those. And, again, I'm glad I don't work in the scheduling department of the NHL front offices in New York. That's a brutal job.
I don't envy that in the slightest. No doubt. So, yep, going to be some schedule tweaks for sure. But it'll definitely be a good opportunity to let the tests come back and to see who's positive and who's negative. And again, just health is paramount. Health is a concern. You gotta put the health and safety of these guys first. So Absolutely. They are doing that, and they will continue to do that, Lord willing. So next question, David Nola at David Nola 985. If the Avs aren't going to use Kaut and Bowers, what level of return could they get? Could they get you paired with a first? It was kind of worded weird. Sorry. Yeah, I know. So why would you trade these guys? I wouldn't trade these guys. They're prospects. They're depth. They're solid. Why would you want to get rid of them?
Yeah, I see what he's saying. Like that's always kind of the conundrum, and it's a good problem to have. Like when you've built up so much depth and so many assets, like Joe Sakic has with this Avalanche team, you do have that opportunity, to go after, when the trade deadline comes around, whatever the top big name is. Like, last year it was Taylor Hall or whatever. And, if the Avs had as much, depth and, assets that they have right now, I think, you could easily have pulled off that trade and that could have, pushed them over the edge to win the cup or whatever. So I get where you're coming from, but I'm not sure just internally they're ready to give up on those guys. Obviously Kaut, like he's a promising young kid. Hasn't, gotten too much of a shot, but looked really good in his first 5 or 6 games last year when he played before, everything was kind of canceled. And he had a rough outing to start this year, I think. And, has not been called up since with this COVID stuff going on. He might get another chance. And same with Bowers. I think Bowers is probably the next man up, replacing some of these sick guys if they continue to play. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm ready to give up on Kaut and Bowers yet, but yes, you could package them with a first round pick and probably get whoever you wanted. Maybe a number one goalie or whatever if that issue might happen. Frankie seems like he was put on a long-term IR earlier today, so he's probably out for a good amount of time. Also helps them save some cap room, and Lord willing, if Grubauer, who is I think been the Avs, MVP and their best player all season long, has stolen them a number of games. If he, were unfortunately to get injured, then you're kind of stuck in a spot where you have Hunter Miska is all of a sudden your number one goalie, and Adam Werner's backing him up, and you're going to have to make a trade within 24 hours in that situation. So yeah, I think if it came down to something like that, I think then you can part ways with the Kaut and the Bowers and and go for a number one goalie that can carry you to the playoffs. But I wouldn't just for fun at this point
No,
in time. No.
no, not to dangle that out there and acquire, like you said, a goaltender in a trade. If Grubauer gets hurt again and you've got the you know Eagles goaltending lineup from last season in Miska and Warner, then yeah, you need to go out and acquire somebody, because that's not going to cut it. That's not going to fly. So,
Yeah.
speaking of Shane Bowers, John D. Sullivan at West U Sooner, what's it going to take for Bednar to give Shane Bowers a shot? Is that a fair statement to say that Jared Bednar hasn't given Shane Bowers a shot?
No, I think we're kind of exactly where we are at as far as like the depth chart goes and taxi squad and calling people up. I think Shane Bowers is never going to be a guy to make this team right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it a few episodes ago, but I was kind of surprised he made the taxi squad. He wasn't on my list to make it. I think there was some better players on there, but he impressed enough to make the taxi squad like right out of camp. But obviously got sent down, and he's at training camp with the Eagles right now. But I think I just touched on it. I think this might be his shot. I think he's probably the next man up. With all these injuries and now missing a couple more guys with COVID protocol, I think Bowers and Kaut are probably already on their way up to Denver right now, or probably maybe already in Denver and preparing for a flight to St. Louis tomorrow. But I think it's coming. I think he will make his debut just because of the way these injuries are happening, and maybe he wouldn't have made his debut this season, but that's the good thing. As bad as it sounds for some of these young guys, like injuries suck, but it's a great opportunity for them, and I'm sure they're loving every second of it. And yeah, I think Shane Bowers might make his debut sometime in the next week or two.
Yeah, I mean, there's again, depth is it's a blessing and a curse in the sense that you've got a whole lot of guys that could fill in if need be, but then you've also got a whole lot of guys that don't necessarily get. I don't know. There's like you said, there's a pecking order, there's a depth chart, and so yeah, to have Bowers, I mean, with all these injuries going on, it's just a matter of time. It's not like a personal grudge that Coach Bednar
Yeah.
doesn't want to give Shane Bowers a shot. I don't think that's fair wording there, John. But I think Scott gave a pretty succinct and good explanation as to what's going on and who's in front of him essentially on the depth chart there. So, John, thank you for the question. Appreciate it. Next up, dude, where's McCarr? Joel the Sakic at Joel the Sakic. Coming back for the second week in a row with a question: does Logan O'Connor stay in the lineup even when the Avs are back to full health? Kid has been so good. And Scott, again, I think we know the answer to this one.
Joel, yeah, Joel, I've been preaching it for. Joel, let me tell you, we have been preaching that for a couple of years now. Like I think this dude is NHL talent. I think he fits the exact way that the Avalanche play. He's fast. He's motivated, and he's a great hockey player. Like the kid is all heart, and I made the comparison, and that I mean he's essentially a Matt Calvert stand-in. He plays the exact same way as Matt Calvert does. Like he's heart and soul. He's the grittiest player on the ice whenever he's on the ice. He's grinding hard for pucks in the corner. He's going for the big hits. He's taking the big hits. He's willing to put his body on the line. And I mean, damn, he's a great forechecker, a great penalty killer. And we've seen he could score some goals, and he scores the gritty goals. He's scored 2 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's got 4 goals in like 9 NHL games, or like something like that. And those are impressive numbers. And we're seeing some sort of offensive potential that he might have, and that's going to make him an even more dangerous player, because I think right now he kind of trends as like a fourth line guy who I've always seen replacing a Matt Calvert or a Tyson Jost on the fourth line.
Right.
But I mean, if he can find this like offensive presence that he's been showcasing through the playoffs last year, and then now through the first 2 games he's played this year, like he's going to be a great hockey player. And he's obviously a cheap option, and that's GMs love that to have on their active roster. And it's like, why would I pay Matt Calvert $3.5 million a year when Logan O'Connor is at like $750K or whatever it is, and plays just as well, if not better, as a younger guy. So yeah, I mean, if I were the coach, if I were Joe Sakic and not Joel the Sakic, I still would do it. I'd put him in, but I think when everyone's back to full health, there's a pecking order, like CC just said. And yeah, like if Matt Calvert somehow came back and was ready to go, then I think he gets sent down, obviously. But his time is coming. That's part of the reason why when he signed in the offseason, shortly after the playoffs last year, signed a 2-year contract. The first year of this contract is a 2-way. The second year of the contract is a 1-way. So I think they've always kind of been planning on, he's going to be a full-time NHL player next year when, like Bellemar's contract is up and Calvert, whatever his situation is. Yeah, he's going to be that fourth line guy for the Avalanche moving forward.
Yeah, and talking from the Avalanche roster, that kind of segs well into our next question, talking about a prospect that is not currently with the Avalanche, but obviously did well at World Juniors, as we talked about, I think on episode 1 a little bit. But yeah, we'll update Gary Thurner here at Gary Thurner, THURNER on the Twitters. He said, "What's up with Newhook? Kind of fell off my Twitter feed." And so, yeah, Scott, go ahead and tell him.
Yeah, because he's not playing. That's
right.
That's
exactly.
the problem. He hasn't played since World Juniors. I think he played one game for BC.
He played one game. Yeah, he played one game for
and
Boston
has not
College.
played since. I don't know what's going on with the upper body injury. I don't know. I haven't really focused on it.
Shoulder injury on New Year's Eve during World Juniors.
Yeah. And I think that's still just kind of like ailing him a little bit and agonizing him, and that's unfortunate because like he is. I mean, this kid is insane. And again, I just like I chuckle to myself every time I think about like we're seeing the Bowen Byrams and the Cale Makars and Sam Girards, like all these young guys that are coming in and playing so well. Then you look at the depth chart still of people who have not even made the roster yet, and you look at guys who are coming up the pipeline like Alex Newhook, who is bound to be a second line center in the NHL and looks elite. Almost won a Hobey Baker last year. Was up for like people were saying he was going to win the Hobey this year, but obviously, I mean, he's missed half the season, so that's not going to happen. But it's insane. So I mean, the reason you're not seeing anything from him is because he's not playing. But he's coming. Hopefully he recovers from this. Hopefully he gets some games this year and recovers from that shoulder, and can maybe take BC to the Hockey East final or whatever. And I mean, the more games he plays, the better for Avalanche fans. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, he could be a guy that competes for a roster spot next year out of Avs camp.
Again, a wealth of riches in the depth chart and the prospect pool for the Avalanche. It's easy to cover a team like this when they're so well built. It's amazing. So
yeah.
So we'll continue to keep an eye on him and see when he returns from injury. Thank you, Gary, for that question. Michael Myers, Mikal Myers is Islander Mike, Izlander Mike. He's from Hawaii, if you look at his Twitter profile.
Oh, so sweet. Did not know that. Mahalo, brother.
Mahalo, a little shaka for you. Any speculation on the expansion draft? Here's the one.
Oh God, dude! Did we call this last week? I wish we had like the editing capabilities to like rewind. I was like, I guarantee you, we're gonna get some expansion draft question.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's every damn week.
Yes, it is. So here it is. Guaranteed protects the maybes, the easy, not so easy giveaways. Scott, you want to give them the Reader's Digest version real quick?
I'll give you the Spark Notes real quick, Michael.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, he actually he asked it in a more fun way, I guess. As far as my speculation, it's going to be the same players. It doesn't change from week to week. It's Tyson Jost, JT Compher, and I think Ryan Graves as the three guys who are probably likely to be exposed. And then there's a chance they ask Eric Johnson to waive his no movement clause, and I think he'll do that and possibly get exposed. But guaranteed protects. I think it's your obvious ones. Nathan McKinnon. I'm not even sure Bowen Byram needs to be protected because he's a first-year player. But yeah, I mean, I think you're protecting McKinnon, Makar, Sam Girard. What is it? It's like 7 forwards and 2 defensemen, or no, 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, or like I don't know what it is. I can't list it off for you. I don't have the roster in front of me, but Landeskog, the top line, they're protected. I think Burakovsky's protected. Who else? McCarr for sure on the back end. Sam Girard. That's 6. You have to protect a goalie. Maybe they let Grubauer go. Protect Frankie because he's got a longer contract
Hmm.
and he's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 7. I don't know. I think it's like
Well,
10 total players. 9.
it can be 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goalie, or 8 total skaters and 1 goalie. So
Yeah.
we were close, but
Okay.
I think that's a sufficient answer. I mean, you know the guys that you're going to protect on that, and then the easy, not so easy giveaways. I think obviously the fourth liners that Scott, third and fourth liners that Scott kind of lined out there. And
I'd protect Logan O'Connor for sure.
Of course you would. President of the Logan O'Connor fan club over there. Yeah,
the kid's real. I want a full like super cut of all the times I've tweeted or like said this in a podcast, like dating back to like 2017 about how good this kid's gonna be.
You would have to take on that editing project because that would be way too much.
It'd be a lot. It'd be like a 5-minute super cut of.
Oh gosh, my girlfriend would be like, "What the hell are you doing in there?" I'd be like, "Doing a super cut on Logan O'Connor." Yeah.
It's just like how creepy and like fanboyish it sounds too. That like I'm just like president of the club or whatever, but like whatever. It's in a strictly like platonic. I know this guy way, and I think he's the real deal. That's all. So
do one of those like fan tribute videos that you see on YouTube occasionally, or on Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. But yeah, Scott's a professional credentialed journalist, so he knows what the hell he's talking about. But last question, we'll wrap this up. Most of the time, pretty much all the time.
Appreciate that.
Gil Mainklang. Gil Mainklang.
Mainklang is back.
Mainklang is back. Second week in a row at GIL_MANECLANG. Give me your least favorite NHL fan base. Let's end this on a fun one here. Living in and being from Memphis, I interact with the occasional Preds fan. Loud, obnoxious, don't like them at all. Also, Nashville sucks. Wow.
Okay, never been, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, yeah, and honestly, I think, and I'm going to throw it out there first, Scott, so you can wrap it up.
Go for it.
But I would say that every fan base in the NHL and every sports fan base have fans. Like, not the whole fan base as a whole, because I think that's an unfair, just painting broad strokes there. I think every fan base have the unsufferables, the ones that you're just like, oh my God, just shut up, or, just stop talking. So that's my opinion. And I don't really know, like NHL wise, that you've got specific fan bases that are more insufferable than others. I mean, of course, with the kind of little rivalry that Boston and Colorado have going on for the top line in the NHL that's been going on the past year or so, I would say maybe Boston fans, but I have good friends that are Boston fans. So it's like, I can't really talk a whole lot of crap about them.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually, that segues perfectly into mine, because when I saw this question, that's the first thing that popped in my head. I would say Boston. Maybe it's just like it's an original six thing. It's a jealousy thing. They have a great fan base. It's super passionate, but just like that's how it's a regional thing. It's a Boston thing. They're loud and boisterous and sometimes disrespectful. Apologies to any Boston listeners or whatever, but I mean, you guys are aggressive people, and like I appreciate that about you guys, because you guys are passionate, and that's awesome. But coming from like humble Colorado beginnings, it's just it's a little much. And then I would say Chicago as well.
Ooh,
not so much like now, but when they were winning their cups, like 3 cups in 4 years or whatever it was, or 2 and 3, whatever they won, no one cares. Chicago cares, not me. I would say they're just like, insufferable. Anytime you would cover a game or go to an Avs game, it was just, 95% Chicago. And that was another thing too. Nikita Zadorov, when he was like on the way out and got traded to Chicago, and met with Chicago media for the first time, like, it was kind of like, I don't think he meant it this way, but it was kind of like a slight towards like Colorado. And he's like, how excited are you to like play in Chicago, whatever, with like this fan base? He's like, well, like, I don't know, like, you go to like Pepsi Center. At the time it was called Pepsi Center, and it's like it was like being in Chicago anyway. Like, Avs fans like never showed up. It's like, oh, okay, well, see ya. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Right.
Like, again, I don't
Yeah.
think he like meant it like aggressively like that or passive aggressively, but it was just the way he said it. And yeah, I would say those are my two. One from the East, one from the West.
That's a fair assessment. And the Chicago friend that I do have, she's a little, she likes to rub my nose a little bit into it that she's a Blackhawks fan. And it's like, all right, easy now. When did y'all win your last Stanley Cup? And then she goes, well, when did you all win your last Stanley Cup? I'm like, well, I'm not part of the Avalanche, so no.
I don't ever win any cups, so.
I'm a credentialed journalist. I'm unbiased and professional. So, no, I don't talk to her like that, and I don't normally talk like that either. So,
thank God, yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? That'd be grating.
Could you imagine? Wow.
Oh, I can, and I'd feel sorry for you. You'd be like, all right, CC, pump the brakes.
We're done.
I cannot. Yeah, we are not
quitting the show.
This, but I quit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the last question, but to kind of add to that. I know I kind of said, Scott, you were going to wrap that up, but let's throw Philly in there. I know Philly, the Eagles fans and everything. That's, I think, another good fan base. But honestly, again, I have very good friends that are Philly fans too. So,
yeah, it really is just like it's the regional thing. Like Philly,
Sure.
They're Philly, Boston, aggressive people. Chicago too. It's like that city spirit, that city attitude, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like if you're from that region, that's home. That's what you know. But as an outsider, like looking on or whatever, it's like I don't understand this culture, and it's like you guys are aggressive and sometimes mean, but it is what it is. You guys are objectively an original six hockey team, I guess, both Chicago and Boston, and you guys have done great work over the years.
Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to paint with broad strokes, like I said, but breaking news. Oh, and you cut out.
Did I cut out? Did you just miss it? Can you hear me?
I did miss it completely. I can hear you now. Damn. Okay. Do it again.
Avs games, breaking news, are postponed through February 11th.
Avs are postponed through February 11th?
Yep. Breaking news as of 5 seconds ago.
Wow. Okay.
7:19 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Thursday, February 4th. All Avs games postponed through February 11th, which I think is like 4 games.
Well, we're just gonna put this episode right here then, because everything we said is moot. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know, man. Like I touched on it earlier. I was like, I'm calling it right now. I'm about to text Dater too.
Do it. Hey, let's finish up real quick, and I'll let you text Dater.
Sorry, guys.
Hey, come on, we got a show to finish here. Quick, get off the phone. All right, so. With that said, thank you guys for tuning in to Front Range Hockey. Don't forget to follow our show on pretty well any major podcast platform. We're talking Google, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. We're on them. We're there. So check it out and subscribe and give us a listen. We appreciate all the listens we've already got so far. So thank you guys for tuning in. And please give our Twitter account a follow. As you can see, our handle scrolling below, it is Front RNG Hockey on Twitter. So give us a follow. And Scott, where can people find your work?
You can find me at offscottfree, 0FF SCOTTFREE on Twitter. You can find my work at coloradohockeynow.com. There every day. I tweet every day, annoyingly probably. But just trying to deliver the coverage that Avs fans deserve. And I hope I'm doing that.
Not annoyingly, just thoroughly.
Yes.
You're being thorough, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, man. Of course. And I'm CC Hawkley. Once again, you can find my written work at Full Press Hockey. That is www.fullpresshockey.com. Pretty straightforward. Check out this and a ton of other great hockey podcasts, plus other great sports pods on the Full Press Radio Network, which we are a part of, at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Thank you once again for listening. All of my and our guys, gals, and non-binary pals that tune into the show, we appreciate it, and we wish that you stay colorful, my friends. We'll see you next time.
Adios.